Welcome to China Focus. I'm Shelley Zhang. Would you get divorced to save a few bucks on real estate? Well, in China, that's what some people are doing after heavy-handed tax laws and some strange loopholes are leading people to go to extremes to avoid a 20% real estate tax. So what's behind the tax, and why are people reacting so severely? Here today to talk about this, we have China analysts Chen Zhifei and Jason Ma. So talking about this 20% tax. What is the tax on? It's a little unclear, it seems to me.
Right. It's at the very beginning, it's unclear for everyone, and because that's just kind of the central government at the beginning of March suddenly saying like, oh, in the future we will kind of have this 5 bullet to control the housing price. One of the bullet is we will make sure everyone have to pay 20% of their capital gain on when they sell a house. Everyone was a panic, and then come back with more details. Say, oh no, if you are leaving your house for at least 5 years, that's your primary residence. If you sell that house, you will not pay for that.
So it's only for if you're selling a house that's not your primary residence, a second or third house.
Or with less than, you
live there less than 5 years, and you're going to pay 20% of whatever profit you make.
Yeah, but there is another kind of green area. They said they are going to just give a more detailed guideline of some other kind of exceptions. But each local city set up their details, like how much the price of the house you should pay, and what's the size of house, what's the nature of the transaction, all may kind of play into a formula that decide how much tax.
So it might not be 20% for everybody then.
Well, I think 20% is kind of the guideline. It's the kind of a national mandate, because capital gain tax, if everything is right, as Jason described, then it's charged at national level. There could be some local modification about it, but I think 20% is kind of carved in stone. But as he described, I agree that the devil's in the detail, and how this will play out is still, remain to be seen. But one thing that really stood out, just as you said in opening remark, divorce rate has been really pushed up.
Right, but that's not a few bucks. They can save a lot, because really the Chinese housing market increased kind of exponentially in the past 5 to 10 years. Most of the place, the house price 5 times more than 5 to 10 years ago. So if you buying a house for 1 million renminbi in kind of Beijing 6 years ago, now it's worth like 4 million. So the profit is 3 million. And then 20% of that is 600,000 renminbi, which is 100,000 US dollars. 100,000 US dollars is not a change.
So that seems like that even blows the US housing market out of the water in terms of how much the real estate has grown.
That's true, because experts have done some papers, Western scholars, they found the property prices have contributed the most to China's inequality. Social inequity. Right. And one prominent scholar based at Yale University, Professor Zhi Chen, he posited after a careful calculation that the total transfer of wealth from individual family to the government could be to the tune of 17 trillion yuan, but still that's a lot of money.
Which is about 3 trillion US dollars.
That's huge.
Right, it's just one policy. It's not a law passed by any kind of Chinese Congress or something. It's just a kind of a government department. They suddenly announce something.
Exactly.
They take 3 trillion
so let me ask
US
about
dollars.
like this particular thing that they just announced. You know, it's like you said, the details haven't really come out. It's not clear. Is it clear when they're going to implement this?
They said all the detail will probably start from end of March, beginning of April.
So people are really reacting.
That's
very
the trick they
are
are throwing out, because they are playing here. What has happened is they don't know how public would react to it. So they threw out some, the guideline in very vague terms, and they will use it as sounding board to give out, to push the next step when it comes to implementation details. And the market tanked. Market was really panicky when they when they got this news. And this was announced overnight. It's not like in the United States we have a long brewing process over the whole thing. Here, this is the executive order from State state council. Legally, I suspect it could be anti-constitution.
But nobody will challenge them legally, because in China, that's the way they run the country. They have an idea, they pump up the next morning. And so
the way to run the country, according to Chinese constitution, the tax collecting capacity or
they
rules are
following
coming from the law-giving bodies like the NPC.
But you know, the problem is they don't even respect their own constitution. That's the reason Xi Jinping constantly saying we should respect our constitution.
So even the real estate, this particular thing is not respecting the Constitution? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is, but they don't really care. That's the way they run the country. I mean, basically, I think that's a lot of people from there kind of have a conclusion like how much wealth you have in China is unknown, because all your wealth is subject to another policy. Because if they next time they say, "Oh, I'm not charging you 20%," what about 50%?
That's why people would go to length or sacrifice the cost of marriage.
I was going to say, it
dignity.
seems so extreme, the reaction.
No, if you just buy divorce and sell the house and then remarry, you can save $100,000 US. A lot of families will do here. I mean, basically, but I think that's really ridiculous when you look at the whole thing. The whole reason is because the policy itself is ridiculous.
So why is there this policy? Is it like they need the tax money, or?
I don't think the policy itself, from standpoint of theory, it's capital gain tax. I think it's not fair in terms of how much it will penalize rich people. Rich people are penalized because if you have dozens of houses, as those high-ranking government officials would, that we're talking about 房姐, 房叔, right?
Mm-hmm.
The housing sisters, housing brothers, they have a lot of houses, and each of them will be levied this 20% tax. However, there are also a lot of get-arounds. For common folks, they can use divorce to get around paying the tax.
Only if you
For high-ranking officials, they have friends at tax collecting authorities. They could just push up the original price at which they bought it. And it's easy to get around.
Right. But I guess the point is that they claim they have this policy to control the housing price. But almost everyone saying this will increase the house price for two reasons. One is always in China, because the big city housing is always people kind of chasing for. So the seller always can convert all the cost to the buyers. And for example, in the past, some kind of government kind of supported house, and if you buy it after 5 years, you can sell it, but you have to pay 10% of land fee. But what really happened in China is when they sell it, the 10% of land fee is paid by the buyers.
Because the housing market is so hot, everybody wants.
That's number one challenge when Western journalists report on this event. If you use the mindset of Western kind of argument or observation to interpret this, you will be totally off. And the thing I checked with my friends working in the real estate industry in China, they told me, I was shocked that most of taxes will be picked up by buyers.
So when
unheard of.
When you think about this, you think government want to control the house price, but end up by one night they increase the house price 20%. And another funny thing is, the reason Chinese house price go up so quickly because of the local government benefit from selling land, but this time they give the local government more incentive to increase the house price, because now they can have 20% of a gain out of the house price. So the higher house price grow, the local government gain more. Now they not only gain by land, they also gain by house price by the tax.
So the tax is going to the local government.
Right, and a part of them. But anyway,
not completely.
that's incentive for the local government to further push up the house price. So these two reasons will push up the house price, and it will really kind of against what they claim they want.
So
and also they will worsen the imbalances of development. As we know, Chinese, if you look at the economy, the coastal areas are more robust, much more developed. And also the housing market is two-tiered. What Jason primarily focused on is the so-called first-line cities,
Right.
tier one cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen. The price is really, off the roof. However, when you live in third-tier, fourth-tier cities, the price has been coming down. Because there is not that much demand for it. Because the government officials, they have really benefited from land grab. They have a lot of units. There wasn't no demand. And local people income level was very, very low. They couldn't afford the market's prices of the local housing.
Right.
And so this will further exacerbate this imbalance.
So you're gonna
because the city dwellers in Beijing will keep getting higher prices, but the third tier, fourth tier cities, those residents will be blocked even further from buying a house because of the tax increase.
Right. I guess basically this is make the current originally 5 years ago, every house is increased value. Right now it's dividing. I mean the third tier, fourth tier, they are seeing decrease of housing price and decrease demanding. Right now, this policy will really make the first tier place more expensive than the third tier.
So do you think that they'll still implement this if it has the effect that you're saying? It's like it's going to go exactly against what they want to do?
Because it's already announced. So they will no matter what carried on. And that's always happened. I mean, in the past 10 years, they claim almost every year, they have 2 or 3 of these kind of policy come out to control the house price. Every time house price in the first tier city respond with increase.
My suspicion is the average housing market would be a little bit in decline, possibly, because of the effect I just described at the third tier, fourth tier cities. However, but if you look at those primary big cities, first-line cities, the price could get higher.
So if the problem is the real estate prices skyrocketing, the bubble possibility, what can they actually do to solve the problem of the housing prices?
I think if they really want to solve the housing kind of a crisis, or either get kind of a squeeze out the bubble from the housing market, the easiest thing is to control the speculators. I mean, basically, right now, why so many people chasing for a house? Chinese government agreed 70% of the people right now are buying house in Beijing, Shanghai, first tier city, are those investors. And because the price is so high, only rich people, those learners can buy the house. And in that case, you have to get rid of those investors to make sure those people who have real need have a big enough.
I think the current rule, if implemented, will somehow dampen the spirit of those speculators, but not as much as it should. Using the United States as an example, if you buy summer house as a second investment, you would be excluded from the benefit the government accorded to you. That is, for the capital gain you got, if it below $500,000 for jointly filed spouses, you are excluded from any capital gain taxes. You're tax deductible. For individual, it's $250,000. But there are a lot of get-arounds, like what I just said. They can get the forced documents for the original prices to pay. They can get around it because these people are privileged. I mean, to really solve the problem, first of all, I think they should implement something similar to Americans' property taxes. So that if you buy 3 units in a very wealthy, affluent neighborhood, you have to pay local, very hefty, skyrocketing property taxes. You will lose your incentive for further investment.
Well, they talk about property tax every once in a while, but it never gets
They have
implemented.
some cities doing a pilot project. My friends live in the city, Chongqing. She said very few people were affected because that will definitely lead to market collapse. And the government, last thing for them to see now is a total market collapse. Another thing to suppress this whole kind of bubble for real estate is to give the farmers the right to build their own houses and to freely transfer the property. That really would
That's
curb
another
the enthusiasm in cities.
Right, that's another reason. Every land that can build a commercial house owned by the government. And the local government have the incentive to control releasing lands, so they can make sure they maintain the land price.
And then it goes to kind of property developers who want to develop like the luxury, high-end type of buildings.
And then because the developer definitely will add land cost to their housing price. So because the local government needs the higher land price, they will not kind of put a lot of land on the market. So the housing price is really controlled by the government, by the land. So another way, as you said, if all the farmers really can make their land available to development, then the kind of a big amount of land supply will reduce the developers' cost and probably end up reduce the housing price. And definitely that's another solution. But I think if you really combine the three things together, make sure enough land provided. Second, make sure people hold a third, fourth, fifth house at very high cost, and make sure those speculators get out of market. I don't think there's any kind of huge this kind of house bubble kind of in any city, but they dare not do it because of the local government interest, because they really want the whole housing market keep growing. They just don't want it growing like 50% a year. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you both for joining us today to talk about this issue, and thank you for watching. For more on this and other issues in China, join us at ntd.tv.